can we take a couple of those things? Can we take a little bit of momentum from some other aspects of your life where you're brilliant, you're a genius, you're really strong, really powerful. It's almost like you're a damn superhero in some of these other aspects of your life. Can we just carry a little bit of that around and use that as confidence and have that build some momentum towards making some progress?
You are a warrior.
321 status.
What kind of vehicle is it?
You are the very best your nation has to offer.
911.
Multiple shots fired.
They're asking you to lead.
5. We need a Bearcat.
It's up to us.
So 133. I need somebody that's got a visual on where the shooter is.
You must be sound in mind, body, and spirit.
40 feet, where's the officer down? I have a rescue helicopter that wants to land and help.
This is the podcast that will make you the one.
Copy, running eastbound.
The one that will bring everyone back.
Trouble, we have shots fired, shots fired. Give me backup now.
Because no one else is coming.
Screen, I have an officer shot. 100 block of east screen.
Suspect is down. Suspect is down.
This is the Squad Room.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another amazing episode of The Squad Room, the podcast about navigating the challenging terrain of our demanding careers as law enforcement professionals. Emphasis on that last word, professionals. My name is Garrett Tesla. I'm an active duty sergeant for a sheriff's office in Southern California, and I'm here to help you learn tactics and strategies for taking care of yourself, your family, and your community. Now, these are not just strategies that I am passing along from my guests. These are strategies that I am seeking out for myself, things to make me better. Every guest on this show is someone that I have wanted to track down to learn something from for myself. This show, little secret about the show is entirely selfish. Everything about this show is for me to learn something for my own betterment, to make myself better at something. And the fringe benefit is that I get to pass along some of this information to you amazing folks. So if this is your first time listening to the show, thanks for stopping by to check us out. I encourage you to do two things. First is, if you like the episode today, don't forget to subscribe to the show. You can find it on any player of your choice, including Google Play and Spotify now. And second, go back and check out some of our amazing guests. We have Lieutenant Colonel Grossman in episode 62, or Battle of Mogadishu and Delta operator Brad Thomas on 91. Cardiologist John Scheinberg on episode 35, who's also a police lieutenant who knows everything there is to know about all the heart disease issues the cops are dealing with. We have Ryan Mickler from Order of Man on episode 67, or Scotty Reitz from LAPD SWAT and International Tactical School on episode 65. Lots and lots and lots of amazing guests and more amazing guests planned, including today's guest. But before we get to the interview, I want to remind you can get more information on this episode, including the show notes and links, by going to thesquadroom.net. You can also subscribe on the player of your choice and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thesquadroom. I also want to thank two sponsors, one new one, a big one, but two sponsors. Ranger Up, rangerup.com, their clothing line, excellent for first responders and veterans who have a sarcastic and snide sense of humor, such as myself. If you use the code room, the Squad Room, you get 10% off your order at Ranger Up. And now, also Onnit. This episode is brought to you by Onnit. If you don't know Onnit, you should. I was excited to get to partner with them because I've been using Alpha Brain, one of their products, their nootropic, for several years and can vouch for its efficacy. But also, I got some of their kettlebells that look like the gorilla, and it's cool stuff. And again, kind of Onnit and I share a very similar kind of sensibility, I think. Onnit, if you don't know, is a health and fitness juggernaut dedicated to delivering total human optimization. That's their tagline, but it's pretty all-encompassing. They have athletes, thinkers, fitness gurus, entrepreneurs. I mean, everyone from Joe Rogan to Tim Kennedy and all sorts of Bodie Miller, the skier, all sorts of stuff. And they do a wide array of products and supplements, and do a lot of organic type stuff, and I say earth-grown nutrients, and some protein powders and stuff like that. But like I said, I use Alpha Brain. That's their nootropic that they claim gets you more focused and alert. But I say claim, but I've been using it for years, and when I recently went through some testing, I was absolutely, I put making or including Alpha Brain in my breakfast that morning as an essential. I mean, you don't put it on your breakfast. It's a pill you can pop or a drink you can drink. But I made sure that I had it that morning because I can feel the difference with Alpha Brain and how clear I think and in how focused I can stay for like a written test or for an oral interview or those sorts of things. I made sure to take Alpha Brain before my TED Talk because, again, I just feel more aware and more conscious and more alert. It's cool stuff. So go over to onnit.com/the squad room. All right, our guest today is Mark Bell. Mark, I don't know where to begin with Mark. Mark is many things. The most important thing is, or the biggest takeaway I got from talking to him was among the things he is, Mark is humble, and Mark has never forgotten the path he's walked and where he came from. Mark is at this point a multimillionaire, but not always had been that way. He is one of the fittest people on Instagram, but certainly was not always that way. He was overweight. He used the excuse of being a power lifter to let himself get really, really heavy, and finally decided to make some changes in his life. But in the midst of all of that, Mark is also an inventor. He invented different kinds of compression wraps for power lifters and gym rats and such, like the Sling Shot was one, and I have his elbow wraps. Does wrist wraps and knee wraps and all sorts of other stuff. But he's invented several products. He owns several patents. He owns a gym, which to me, the Super Training Gym in West Sacramento, California. What's interesting about this gym is that it's completely free. He doesn't charge a dime to the members of it. You just have to be committed, and then you get free membership into this excellent gym with great coaching. He's also the publisher of Power Magazine about powerlifting. And I'll be honest, I'm not a power lifter. It's not a community that I, gravitate towards, I guess. Nothing against it. It's just never been my thing. But Mark is such an enigmatic personality that he's fun to watch. His YouTube videos are great. He's super motivating. And really today what we talk very little about the specifics of building muscle and weight and how to do those things. We talk a lot about diet, how to manage it and nutrition, how he lost all that weight. And you think of it in the context of badges, which we talk about quite often here. And if you're new, again, badges is an acronym I use for the 6 points of our lives that we need to be focused on: our beliefs, actions, discipline, goals, emotions, and our service. And in those 6 areas, really today we talk a lot about beliefs. And what are the beliefs about ourselves? And are we willing to do the things we want to do, which are the actions that get us to our goals? And really dealing with some of the emotions. We really cover a lot of the badges ideas in this episode. And Mark was just a fantastic guest. So without more talking from me, here we are with Mark Bell. Mark, welcome to the Squad Room. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Garrett. I'm excited.
I am excited too because I've been following you for a long time. Everyone follows on social media. It's so easy to follow people these days, but I got introduced to you through your connection to CrossFit and your CrossFit powerlifting stuff that you were putting out there, and then really became engaged with the stuff that you're doing on YouTube. And then it's just you're constantly putting out this content. So I feel like this is one of the weird things of social media, right? Is that I feel like I know you, which is absurd, and I'm sure you get that a lot. But having that sense, thought you'd have a great perspective on a couple different things that I've been working on recently, and reached out, and you were kind enough to give us some of your time. So, Mark, for the people in my audience who don't know who you are, let's begin with maybe a little bit of an explanation of who you are and where you came from.
I'll first say, I think, what you share, how you share it, and, kind of how you go about doing things, I think, kind of breaks down some of those walls and helps people to feel like they know you better. So when I go to like a trade show or I go and do a seminar or something, somebody might, like my nickname is Smelly. Somebody might yell, Smelly, and they might like grab me, and they think that they know me, but they kind of forget that they don't. And then they kind of realize I'm 250 pounds and they're like, wait, why did I just grab this guy? But, I kind of love that. I embrace that. And I think what people are getting attached to, which I think is really cool, because sometimes this message goes over some people's heads, is, I'm sharing a lot of typical things you see on social media. I'm sometimes sharing success. Sometimes I'm sharing a failure. Sometimes I'm sharing something motivational, but I'm also sharing a lot of myself, like my actual journey, like the things I'm actually going through and going towards. And then I'm also sharing a lot of family stuff and a lot of, beyond just family friendships and relationships and stuff with other people. And I think people really gravitate towards that. And I think that that's a great thing about social media. There's obviously some pitfalls to it as well, but that's, I think, some of the reason why some people are like, hey, I feel like I know you. So my background, I've been powerlifting since I was a kid. I started powerlifting at the age of 12 and never really looked back. Been sore and beat up ever since that time. I've taken, tiny breaks here and there to play some other sports that I thought I was going to be pretty good at, but powerlifting just kind of always called me back. Did some professional wrestling for about 5 years, and that's where I met some really high-level people, and that's where I also recognized that I wasn't them, and that I had to kind of create my own niche, my own way, and I had to become my own person. I couldn't try to copy what other people were doing, especially some of these athletic specimens that you see in the WWE. And then from there, I gravitated back towards powerlifting very heavily and ended up, becoming kind of a quote unquote professional powerlifter, even though that's not really a profession, but that's where I spent my time. And then ultimately that's where I ended up being able to make my money as well, because I was able to come up with an invention called the Sling Shot, which allowed me to make my gym here in West Sacramento, Super Training Gym, allowed me to make the gym free and to share my passion for powerlifting with the world. And then kind of from that point, I also got some recognition as a teacher and a coach in powerlifting, and then was able to kind of turn that into seminars and doing stuff with CrossFit HQ for a while, where I was coaching powerlifting seminars around the country with my buddy Jesse Burdick.
Two things out of that. The first thing I think we want to touch on is, and this was something I didn't understand until really I started following you, the difference between, like, powerlifting is actually like a sport and a thing. It's not just like what now I know to be physique training or going to the gym and just bodybuilding. Describe for people what powerlifting entails.
Yeah, so powerlifting, very specifically down to its finest point, powerlifting is a squat, bench press, and deadlift, and it's done in that order in a powerlifting contest. And you have 3 judges judging 3 attempts at each lift that you do. Once you have selected a weight in the competition, you can't put the weight back. You can't lower the weight that you chose. So if you chose 200 pounds for your first lift and you miss it, you can't go down to 185. You got to stick it out and stay with those attempts. The attempts that you get passed, that get unanimous decisions from the 3 judges, or at least 2 out of the 3 judges, I'm sorry, that accumulates towards your total. So they take your squat and they add that to your bench press, they add that to your deadlift, and that ends up being your total. And that's how we get judged. And in super training, in my gym, what I try to share with a lot of my lifters is, yes, this is what we're trying to do, but there's so many different ways that we're going to get there. And powerlifting itself, like just powerlifting, just doing single rep maxes, is not really a great way to get there. It's one way to get there. It's one way to kind of tap into your nervous system. It's one way to kind of tap into that last little bit of strength that you need to be able to hit those heavy singles. But really, just like in life, you carry all these rules outside the gym. We need a lot of repetitions and we need a lot of sets. And in order to do a lot of reps and a lot of sets, what do we need a lot of? We need a lot of rest, recovery, recuperation. We need good nutrition. We need good sleep, right? So that's what I love so much about the gym, is there's not one single thing that really happens inside the gym that doesn't transfer over to everything that's going on outside the gym. And so that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm passionate about sharing these days.
One of the things you touched on was your willingness to share personal stuff and your own journey through this. And I think that's why people gravitate towards you, because, oftentimes people who are professionals or in the gym a lot can be very intimidating to those of us who are making those first steps into just your basic, 24-hour fitness or goals or whatever. And in sharing your journey and still being incredibly strong, you make it a lot less of a wall. You're breaking down that wall between people. And then you shared that, you recently lost a lot of weight and went from this idea of what I guess you often think of as what a power lifter looks like to, as you say it, I like it, jacked and tan, right? And you use the keto diet with a lot of success, but you've also experimented. Right. And as someone who struggles to stay consistent, I'm wondering, what has been the easiest diet for you to maintain while still leaving you strong?
You're asking a great question. I mean, this question is so good in so many different ways. The words that you chose very specifically tells me that you have been working hard at this for a long time, because the word easy is a kind of a key ingredient. Because if it's not, and it's not to say that people are lazy, but if it's not convenient enough, it's going to be really damn hard to follow every day, right?
Yep.
And if we're so attached to food and we're so attached to sitting down and watching a good old game of football, or cops, I think they enjoy some donuts here and there from things I've heard from other people, right?
It's been mentioned.
So if we're going to enjoy some food with some friends and some beer and stuff like that, it's going to be really hard to have discipline, to have willpower, if we're not really veterans of dieting, of nutrition. And so I think a great place for everybody to start when they're thinking about diets is, first of all, that there's many kinds of diets, right? All diets work. Compliance is the science. If you can comply to something, if you can actually do it, then the science of the information that's provided from that particular diet will probably turn out to be true. It'll probably work. Mm-hmm. But if you're on a keto diet and you do it for 3 days and you binge every third day, probably not going to work out great, because it's not enough consistency for it to really gain the momentum that it needs. I think a great place for everybody to start is to start with addition rather than subtraction. I also encourage people, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, but I also think it's really a good idea for people to take on this principle of, you want to treat yourself like a professional, treat yourself like a professional athlete, or you want to treat yourself like a loved one. Because the way that we treat ourselves is we're just nasty to ourselves. We're not very good to ourselves. The other thing kind of in the mix there is going back to my first point, which is addition, by subtraction. So you want to start to add things into the mix. And some of the things you want to add into the mix are walking. Like, let's just make, you said the word easy. How easy is walking? Well, it's a lot easier than running, It doesn't require any equipment. It doesn't require really anything. The only thing it may require is some like decent weather outside. Mm-hmm. And even then, it's like you can walk in an airport, you can walk in a mall, you can take an extra lap around the grocery store when you're there. Things that I do in my life, when my family and we go to sushi, every night after sushi, we walk in this area in downtown Davis, and we walk to get some frozen yogurt. But like when we walk to get frozen yogurt, we walk out of the way. Specifically, like we walk an extra 10 minutes out of the way. And my kids, every once in a while, they'll bitch and moan about it here and there, but for the most part, they kind of just understand, like, we got to kind of earn these carbs. Mm-hmm. So addition by subtraction is really important, and you want to add in things like walking. You want to add more water into your diet. You want to add maybe a few servings of protein a day. Like maybe you start out with saying, you know what? I know that it's good for me to eat some chicken breast. I'm going to have one chicken breast every day, or one piece of steak every day. I'm going to add in a serving of fruit every day. I'm going to add in a serving of vegetables. Like, never mind like a specific diet, mm-hmm. But just have some guidelines just to start you out, and then you can kind of make things more difficult from there. One more thing I want to mention on this point is the third thing is, like, you never want to kick a downed opponent, I always say. And the reason why I bring that up is it's okay to get down on yourself and the recognition of, like, damn it, I'm too fat, I need to make some changes, or I'm not very healthy, or I'm not getting good sleep because I have sleep apnea, or these different things can happen when you become a big person. There's also no reason to be halfway down, the road with a diet and be like, man, I've been working my ass off, but I only lost 5 pounds. And then you go kind of off the rails again. And you're like, I'm just being back to being my fat self with my stupid habits. And we tend to be really, really just beating the crap out of ourselves. And you'd never say that to anybody else, and never treat anybody else that way. I mean, that would be downright abuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's okay to have the recognition and to understand and say, hey, you know what? You are kind of being lazy. You do need to make some changes, but let's not beat ourselves up too much. Let's figure out, like, how can we be consistent? If I say I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week and not eat carbohydrates for a year, that ain't going to happen. That's going to be way too hard. Let's try to start out by just putting one foot in front of the other and try something simple.
Yeah, that grace and patience with yourself, I think, is something that we all struggle with. I talk about it a lot on the show, and you said the exact same thing I've said before. Is we would never talk to people, our loved ones, our kids, the way we talk to ourselves, but it's completely acceptable to do that. And something I've found really helpful just in the last couple of months is just taking a moment to acknowledge the little successes, right? Like, I got to the gym 4 days last week, which for me that's a great week. I intentionally sat in the car afterwards for a minute. Again, I go at like 5 a.m, sat in the car. It's still dark outside, and just appreciated the fact and kind of congratulated myself on the fact that I did 4 days at, 5 a.m, 4:30 wake ups, 5 a.m. in the gym for an hour, and just kind of celebrate that, and I think you agree with that.
You should. Yeah, you should. I think that's fantastic. You got to celebrate those little victories.
Yeah, and then when you're looking for those little victories, they're all around us, right? And often it's in the time you pass over the donut, or the one time you're able to, keep that soda in the fridge or in the vending machine. That's
another key thing that you just mentioned. Again, this shows you've been paying attention. Like, I think people think the points that you put up on the scoreboard every day are only in the things that you do. Mm-hmm. But the real magic is in the things that you don't do, especially the things that you don't do that you're so used to. That's the hard part, because how can you be different than you were yesterday? Yeah. It's almost impossible. I mean, it's ingrained into every cell in your body that you're going to be kind of the same guy you were yesterday. If you're the guy that goes out and pounds a bunch of beer every Friday, then that's the guy that you are. And people are looking forward to that. And they want to have fun with you, and they'll maybe buy you a couple beers, and they'll maybe egg you on, and they'll be excited about it. Right. Mm-hmm. If you're the guy who's real buttoned up and you don't mess around, you don't play, then that's kind of who you are. And it's hard for you to have a beer, right? It's hard for you to relax. It's hard for you to maybe rip up a dance floor or something like that. Right. So it's hard. Change is very, very, is very difficult. The thing I think is kind of cool is as we get older, you do kind of get to a point where you're like, you know what? Obviously we always are going to care about what other people think of us. But as you get older and you see people that are in their 50s, 60s, people start getting to 70 and they no longer give a crap about what people think about them. Yeah. And it would be great if we could get there a little earlier. That's kind of the key, into our 30s and into our 40s. And how great would it be for our youth to get to that point where they just don't care when they're in their 20s and stuff like that. That'd be a great place to get to.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Last question, I think maybe more on the nutrition, but one is, is it as simple to keto, or I think you're doing carnivore still, right? Or paleo, or any of those? Is it as simple to you as calories in, calories out, or is there something to be said for the ideas behind the no carb? What is it to you?
So in my experience with the people that I've helped, and this is this is going to be steered towards like keto stuff, because I think the people that come to me already know that I do a low carb diet, and they're probably wanting to try a low carb diet. So it might be kind of impartial information, but basically, I personally feel that a lower carb diet is easier. I feel that a lower carb diet in today's world just makes a little bit more sense. And what I mean by lower carb, I'm not really talking about these high level athletes that might need to eat tons of rice and potatoes. And I'm not really talking necessarily about that, but I'm kind of talking about your average guy who likes to hit the gym here and there, that has a 9 to 5. When I say lower carbs, I'm talking about like maybe under 150 a day. And I'm talking about kind of healthier types of carbohydrates, and not really, I'm not talking about soda and ice cream and pizza and things like that. The problem with carbohydrates is that we tend to overconsume them. So it's not even really just carbohydrates. It's a combination usually of carbohydrates and fat that really end up nailing us, like something like a Dorito or something like pizza or something like ice cream. You start to blend fat and carbohydrates together. There's nothing wrong with eating the two together. It's not like something magical happens and it kills you faster that way. It's just that you tend to overeat. And so calories are the number one factor when it comes to, like, it's the strongest thing when it comes to losing or gaining weight. However, I also think that calories are still fairly misunderstood. And I don't think it's as simple as an equation of calories in, calories out, because I think it's hard to figure out what your calorie base is. There's a lot of, like, you can get way into the weeds on this stuff. And that's why I personally don't count calories, but that does not mean that they don't count. They still count quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question more specifically, in my opinion, especially for people that have really struggled with diet, from what I have seen, a lower carbohydrate diet is extremely effective. And even further than that, a no carbohydrate diet is very, very effective, because if I just told you, dude, here's what I need you to do. I need you to not eat carbs for 10 days straight. And then after that day is over, after that 10th day passes, we're going to allow you to have like a cheat meal. And then we're going to do another 10. And we're going to reevaluate. And 30 days from right now, you'll be 10 to 12 pounds lighter. And you might be like, shit, okay, well, that sounds pretty good. But I need you to follow this. I need you to do it this way. And I'm going to kind of be with you every step of the way as you're dropping those pounds. For a lot of guys and a lot of girls, the strictness of that, like, okay, what's the diet? Well, I just don't eat carbs. The same thing goes for, and it's very interesting, the same thing goes for intermittent fasting. What's the diet? The diet is you don't eat. And it's like, man, that sounds like a miserable existence to be like hungry. But hunger does a lot of great things for us. It can help us. It can help us with our cardiovascular. It can help us with our sharpness of our brain. It can also help you just partition calories. You can save your calories for later in the day. So again, if you're a big guy or you're a girl that's been fairly heavy most of their life, you probably enjoy eating food until you're full, and maybe even until you're stuffed. Guess what? When you utilize intermittent fasting, you can stuff the hell out of yourself. You can cap off the night with a big old meal. You still have some calorie restrictions to adhere to, but imagine if you could pile up 2,000 calories in one meal. It's kind of a great thing. I call it fat guy diet. I refer to that kind of stuff as like a fat guy diet, because for most of the guys I've dealt with that have been heavy most of their lives, when they come to me, they'll come to me and be like, man, like I tried the 5 to 6 meals a day thing. It was so hard. I really couldn't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, what's working for you? And they'll say intermittent fasting. I'm like, how does that make any sense? But it does work. It's very effective. So intermittent fasting, you can just pick. You can just select how many hours you want to fast. Mm-hmm. Again, you can get in the weeds on this too, and you can look up all kinds of information about fasting, but just pick an amount of hours that you want. There's really nothing magical about this amount of hours versus that amount of hours. However, it's a good idea to try like 16 hours or so. Some people do a 16-8. They have an 8-hour eating window, which is really condensed down a little bit more, just depending on your day and depending on when you sleep and things like that. Mm-hmm. But for me personally, I've utilized everything from 12 hours to 20 hours, 24 hours. I mean, I've mixed it up a lot. My suggestion is if you're going to start messing around with some intermittent fasting, I would just do it 3 times a week to start, and just do 12 hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or pick, whatever days you want. It is also a lot easier for some reason to fast when you're very, very busy, as opposed to when you have a day where you're not really scheduled to do a whole lot. That's a tough day to try to fast through.
Sitting around thinking about all the food you're not eating.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, when you got to your heaviest,
330 pounds, by the way.
300, and for reference, how tall are you?
I'm about 6 foot, and right now I'm about 240. Okay. So almost 100 pounds.
Almost
down.
100 pounds down. So when you got to your heaviest, was it solely because you were in the powerlifting game and you were trying to get as, bigger or stronger, or did you realize that you had some sort of a negative affiliation or association with food or some crutch on food? Was there anything to that?
Oh, I definitely went way too far. So when I started getting more and more into powerlifting, I hit like a 600-pound bench, and I probably competed. I think I competed at 242 pounds, and this is in a bench shirt, and I benched around 600 pounds. I think at the time I weighed a little more like 250 or something like that, but I cut weight to make weigh-ins and things like that. And then I was like, I kind of just looked at powerlifters, and I was like, oh, okay, well, a lot of these guys, okay, even at 250, I'm like, I'm kind of small for my height. A lot of the guys that are my height are like 270, 290, 300. And so I was like, I'll just get heavier. And so as I got heavier, I got stronger. I got a lot stronger. And I wasn't really that loose with the nutrition. I was still pretty strict. I would still eat, I'd still eat a lot of meat and healthy carbohydrate sources. But then I just got stuck. My weight got stuck. Got stuck at around 270 pounds or so. And I'm like, all right, well, let me throw some ice cream into the mix, and let me throw some junk food into the mix. And then I just got carried away with it. I got to a point where I definitely, because this whole journey started out, when I was 12 years old, and I was kind of fat as a kid. I wasn't like the fat kid, but I was chubby. I had a couple extra LBs on me,
Husky. And they called it husky when we were kids, right?
Yeah. Husky. There you go. And so, I was kind of battling a little bit of that, and I lifted, and I got in better shape, and I started learning about the nutrition side of things at a very, very young age, and I was able to get myself in good shape. But as I went through powerlifting, I kind of fell right back into that same trap. And that's why I'm saying it's so hard to kind of change, who you are and the things that you enjoy, right? That's what we're trying to abstain from. It's like, what a horrible existence that is, to abstain from the things that you love to do. I love to eat peanut butter cups. I love to eat Snickers bars. I love to eat pizza. I love to have a Big Mac. I saw a picture of a Big Mac yesterday, and I was like, damn, I'd love to go eat a Big Mac. But it's just not part of anything that I do all that often anymore. But when it comes to a poor association with food, yeah, definitely. I definitely fell into that trap. And beyond that, not only did I fall into that trap, I was totally addicted to food, to the point where I would wake up at, 1 o'clock in the morning and then go downstairs and just annihilate whatever was in my pantry, ice cream, cereal. And I'm sure a lot of people listening right now can relate. And it sucks, man. It's very, very hard. I would actually say it probably wasn't until almost like sometime last year that I finally stopped doing that. It took me like a decade to be able to shake that. That was a rough one to try to shake. And I think a lot of it had to do with losing weight. A lot of it had to do with instilling new habits. So, I said that I was still doing it last year, but like last year when I was still doing it, it would just be, I would switch out what I was eating. So it would no longer be like junk food. I'd have like a protein shake, but it's still calories in the middle of the night, pretty much for no reason. But a lot of it started from just being unhealthy and not being able to sleep, because I think I had sleep apnea. So I'd wake up many, many, many times during the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think any of us out there who works my job understands that, and how, like for me, I get, when I'm tired, that's when I'm at my worst, right? And we all know that our willpower is at our worst when we're tired or when we're fatigued. But I'm working night shift, and I'm on my 4th night in a row, and it's 12-hour shifts, and I'm like, well, the only thing open is McDonald's, and like you say, that Big Mac sure looked good on the billboard. So I'm going to swing in there in my patrol car rather than go down the street to the 7-Eleven and get an apple and a protein bar, because it feeds something psychological in you too, right? You're hitting something there, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm thinking too, like, just the other night I opened a bag of popcorn and I killed that whole bag of popcorn while sitting on the couch with my wife watching a TV show, and I don't mean like a popcorn like you get with your lunch, like a little small one. I mean like the big sized one, right? And my wife gives me this shocked and almost disgusted look from across the couch. did you just kill that whole bag? And I realized it was more out of routine and boredom and something to do with my hands almost than it was the need. I certainly don't need the nutrients of what that bag of popcorn had to offer, right?
I do think people that are listening to the show, just try it. Just give it a shot. Just lean into the resistance of life. Like, find your hardest part of your day. Like, let's say that every day at noon you're dying for a burrito, right? Try to just make a change. Try to just see how you feel. Just try a salad. Try fasting through something. Try not to eat anything when you go to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Try to just go in there with some water. Like, first of all, you're not going to die. And secondly, you're actually going to feel really good about your decision once the movie's over, right? It's like a lot of this stuff, it tastes good on your tongue for just a few minutes, but it really leaves us so quickly. Mm-hmm. And just try to really be aware of some of the decisions that you're making throughout the day. If you can just it doesn't have to be the best choice. Just work on trying to make a better choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did 30 days without alcohol, just kind of a reset, so to speak. Great. And it was interesting to me going from, well, first of all, recognizing the habit of just, how easy it is to get into the habit of coming home, reaching in the fridge, grabbing a beer almost automatically. You don't even necessarily want a beer, but you just find yourself halfway through and going, how did this end up?
Everyone does it with coffee. I think everyone can relate to some extent. They do it with something.
Something, right? And after a few days of being hyper aware of the craving part of it, of craving that habit, whatever it is, coffee or alcohol or whatever, but then work, like you say, leaning into it and working through that, and then recognizing, oh, here I am, I'm feeling this like trigger. And I noticed triggers were things for me like, okay, it's coming towards the end of my workday. So that kind of triggers something, or coming home maybe, or going to a certain store that has a really good beer selection. Those are all triggers towards wanting that treat, right? And that's how I always looked at it, was a treat. So it was this interesting experience of frustrating at first, and then recognizing where I needed to lean in, and then going back to what we were talking about, celebrating the fact that I was making the right choices. And that you want to keep doing the right choices. Once you've made it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, it gets easier and easier, and you don't want to make the bad choice anymore.
People are so much stronger than they give themselves credit for. I mean, you have one of the hardest jobs in the world. You have a really, really tough job. I know teachers. I know people that are police officers. I know people that are nurses, doctors. People that have children, being a mom or a dad, like, there's nothing more impossible than that job.
Yeah.
And they have these really strong, wonderful habits, and it's just like, man, like, can we take a couple of those things? Can we take a little bit of momentum from some other aspects of your life where you're brilliant, you're a genius, you're really strong, really powerful. It's almost like you're a damn superhero in some of these other aspects of your life. Can we just carry a little bit of that around and use that as confidence and have that build some momentum towards making some progress?
I love that idea, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for that. I recently started going back to a traditional gym. I think I mentioned it before we started recording. After many years of doing pretty strict CrossFit style workouts, and I'm using a physique template that I'm really enjoying going back to kind of the basics of a traditional gym workout. What I like about the template ideas is that it's kind of what I liked about CrossFit was I didn't have to think about how many reps, how many sets, or what the weight was, because this thing tells me what to do, right? And it took a lot of the intimidation out of it for me of going back into that gym setting. And so I was curious for someone who, if someone showed up at your gym and they said, look, Mark, I'm 41 years old. I'm a cop on night shift. I got 2 young kids at home and I haven't been to the gym in a long time. I put on some weight and I need help. What would you start them with, and how might you lay out a training plan for them that gets someone started?
Yeah, number one thing I would say is, like, first thing to recognize is that as much as I am a fan of the gym, you can lose weight without stepping foot inside of a gym. So I do love the gym. I do love training, and building up some muscle mass is definitely important for a million different reasons, but it also can be frustrating, and it's hard to figure out kind of where to start. It can be very intimidating. first place I would probably start is I would go into a gym and I would try to find someone that can help you, whether it be a trainer or if you're kind of not comfortable with that, maybe just start asking some people some questions. Say I've been coming here for a few weeks and I was kind of wondering, like, can you show, like most of the time people, I mean, I've actually never even seen a case where somebody was like, no, like screw off. I'm not going to show you how to do that. Mm-hmm. The people in the gym, they look intense and they look like they're getting after it, but a lot of times people won't mind taking a couple seconds to show you something. So the first recommendation would be, I would try to get involved in some sort of program, some sort of system. CrossFit is actually a really, really cool place to kind of start for some people, just because it's a group training environment. I'm not saying everyone has to do CrossFit, but it's a group training environment, which ends up making you pretty accountable.
Yeah.
When it comes to like, where to start in terms of like exactly what to do in the gym, it's like there's way too many things to even consider. I do think that bodybuilding is great. I think that bodybuilding, you're going to have less injuries when you do like bodybuilding, and as you pointed out, kind of aesthetic style workouts where the rest periods are short, the intensity, the weight, what you're using is fairly low, and you're doing multiple sets and you're just working like some body parts, as opposed to powerlifting where we're trying to work a bench press, squat, or a deadlift at a maximum or fairly high intensity. And those can break your body down quite a bit. CrossFit can break your body down a lot, and so can Olympic lifting. And so bodybuilding, just trying to build up some hypertrophy, the old kind of old school 3 sets of 10 type of stuff is very, very effective. For some people, it might be a little bit too, they might find it to be boring, but I've always liked those style of workouts. In terms of nutrition, I mean, you can get my book, The War on Carbs. It's like $20. I think on Amazon it's like $15 or $10 or something like that. It's very, very inexpensive. It's 75 pages. I think half of it is pictures. I don't like to read, and so I designed a book that anyone can pick up. It's just a reference guide, but basically you want the message boiled down even shorter than that. Is just try to develop some new habits. Try a handful of 10-minute walks throughout the day. If you can get in 3 10-minute walks every single day, that is a really good start. But just because you might not be able to afford to do 3 10-minute walks doesn't mean that you don't do any. Mm-hmm. Always try to get in at least one, and preferably it'd be great to get 3 10-minute walks every single day. 8 hours of sleep. 8 hours of sleep is very critical. Drinking enough water. It's hard for me to just give out a blanket recommendation for drinking enough water to tell you exactly how much to drink, but drink 3 big glasses of water every day. Like, make sure that you get at least that in addition to some other liquids that you're kind of consuming throughout the day. When it comes to actual food selection and food choices, try to stick to meats and try to stick to vegetables. And you can have a smaller portion of your foods come from some starches such as rice or potatoes, and you can even have some fruit in there. If you want to try to go on an even lower carbohydrate diet, what you could do is you could do a kind of keto style diet, a very low carbohydrate diet where the fat calories are up a little bit. And you can occasionally, if you have a sweet tooth, you can occasionally have some fruit. And if you can be disciplined with it, there could even be some room for some chocolate in there as well. Dark chocolate is kind of preferable only because you'll usually just eat less of it. Than, like for me, like, give me a milk chocolate Hershey bar and I'll devour like a giant 2-pound bar. But, give me some bittersweet dark chocolate, which I enjoy a lot as well. I'll probably eat like a quarter of the bar rather than down the whole thing. So there's just a few things. Oh, another huge point is, so whenever you start a diet, the intention should not be to lose weight. You should throw that right out the window, right off the bat. The intention should not be to lose weight unless you're a veteran dieter and unless you have proven to yourself that you know how to lose weight. I would not have that be the main intention. The main intention is we are trying to develop new habits. And in order to develop these new habits, how do we set ourselves up in environments that will allow for this? And so that means that you don't go to the grocery store that has the good beer. That means that you don't hang out with your friends that just want to eat cheeseburgers all day. That means that you're going to hang around people that have a healthier lifestyle, that don't drink, that maybe don't choose to eat ice cream in the middle of the night. You're gonna have to find a way to set yourself up for success. I think a really important thing is to I mentioned fasting earlier, and I mentioned the benefits of being hungry. But being hungry can be really detrimental when you're big and you're not even used to the habit of meal prep. You're not even used to the habit of like going to the store and learning how much some of this stuff costs. You look at like a filet mignon or something at Costco, and you're like, damn, that's really expensive compared to something else you were buying before. And so there's a lot of learning that has to happen. You have to cook. You have to start to try to find. You have to learn how to shop. You have to learn how to cook. There's a lot of learning that goes on. So what I would recommend is stuff yourself with nutrient-dense foods for a few weeks. Stuff yourself and fill yourself up. You don't have to overeat intentionally, but the first 2 weeks of a diet, maybe even the first month, it might be frustrating to you to think that you're going to kind of throw away a month and possibly not lose a bunch of weight. But trust me, you're going to need this. You're going to need this structure in order to lose the weight anyway. So fill yourself up with food and just try not to overthink it. Try not to, don't think about like, I'm going to go on this diet tomorrow. I guess that's my main point is this is a lifestyle. So if I told you, Garrett, like, dude, we're going to change everything tomorrow, you'd be like, wait, well, what about, I got a wife and I have this job. No, you're coming to super training. You're going to train with us 5 days a week. We're going low carbs. Here's what we're doing. You'd be like, oh man, and you would do it for 3 days and, we'd both be miserable. Right. So it has to be something that's sustainable, and it has to be a commitment to a lifestyle change. And that's why you don't want to go so full blast into it right out of the gate. There's no rush. In 3 months, in 4 months, in 6 months, you could be 20 pounds less, 30 pounds less, 40 pounds less anyway. Mm-hmm. Even with that 1 month time period in there, where you're just learning what to eat, how to eat. I highly recommend everyone also checks out the vertical diet from my buddy, Stan Efferding. He's got a lot of great information, in that book, and it just teaches you a lot about, you can even YouTube it and look up some information, on some podcasts that he talks about. But if you start to piece together what your body actually needs instead of giving your body what it thinks it wants because of our bad habits, when you start putting these pieces of the puzzle together, what you're going to learn is you're not even that damn hungry anyway. You start to fulfill the needs of the actual nutrients that your body needs, and you start to feel like $1 million.
I love your emphasis on progress over perfection. And I think we get so wrapped up in having to be perfect, and then when we're not, because we never will be, we fall off the wagon. I do this all the time, right? I miss a meal, or my cheat meal extends to a cheat day or a cheat weekend, and then it's like I just throw everything out with the bathwater. And
it's a cheat month. You're like, I'll get to it next month.
Right, exactly. I mean, how many times I said I'll start on Monday, right?
Yeah.
And it's only recently where, again, kind of goes back to this patience with yourself of focusing on, okay, what can I do right now? What's in front of me? And regardless of what the scale says, I'm making progress, and I'm going to have, this is not a linear progression where, we go straight up. There's dips and curves and bumps in the road on this path, and allowing ourselves some grace there seems to be such a big thing. So I know I only have you for a few more minutes. I want to kind of get into some real specific stuff too about some of the things you mentioned. The Sling Shot, and I'm a user of the elbow wraps myself, and wrist wraps. What, aside from your book, we'll put that out there as assuming the book, what's the best investment you've made in your own fitness that costs under $100? Something people can do that immediately jumpstarts something for you.
The first thing I would recommend is, it's just something I wanted to recommend just a few minutes ago, but it slipped my mind, was there's a lot of meal prep companies out there. And so somebody might look at these different meal prep companies, and they might look at a meal and they'll be like, oh man, it's $11. And they're like, that's kind of pricey. But if it's $11 and it tastes pretty good and it allows you to bring it to work for the day, and it doesn't cost you, the drive to Costco, and it doesn't cost you the time to cook it and all these things, and it's an investment in your health, it might be worth it. So I would highly recommend that people give some meal prep companies a shot. Now, you don't want to live off the meal prep companies because that doesn't really make any sense either. I mean, it's not economical, and you're not going to want to eat the same tasting types of foods every single day, most likely. And then you kind of mix that in with some of the other things that you would normally cook for yourself. And I think that you're setting yourself up with a nice safety net. Things that are inexpensive that are effective would also kind of depend on your lifestyle. For me personally, I love protein powders. I love we make some of these things, but pick and choose what things that you like. We have one called Keto Pro, which has some extra fat in it and has some really good flavor. But I'm a fat kid at heart, and I have a sweet tooth. So something that I do at the end of almost every single day is I take some hydrolyzed whey protein powder, just chocolate, and I throw it into some plain yogurt. I just throw it in there. I mix it up with a spoon. It mixes in there pretty good, and I sit down. I watch TV with my wife and kids, and I have at that. And it's obviously not a bowl of ice cream, but it tastes good. I like the flavor of it. And you can also try this. You can throw this in your freezer, and it will freeze and will turn in almost like a custard. For some reason, it works better with the lower fat yogurt, which I have not figured out why, but I think the fat freezes weird or something with the higher fat ones. But I usually get the full fat ones, and I just mix the protein powder in there. But protein powder, I mean, price wise, usually under $50, pretty inexpensive. And if I'm going to mix up a protein shake, I'd usually just mix it with water. And nowadays it should taste pretty good. I mean, it might, it tastes pretty good in comparison to what it's not going to taste good compared to a milkshake, but it's going to taste pretty good in terms of the way that protein shakes go. So those are just some things that I've messed around with. I mean, if you wanted to, you could add some heavy whipping cream and things like this to a shake and make it taste a lot better. You're just going to have to be careful that you're not you're not overdoing it because heavy cream can have, you could be adding 1 million calories to it. So those are just some things I've done that have helped me quite a bit. Obviously, the Sling Shot, an invention of mine, is something that can help people with bench press, push-ups, dips, fairly inexpensive. I'm trying to think of anything else you would really need in the gym. I'm not a big proponent of thinking that you need I don't like the idea of that you don't really need anything. Right. If you want something, that's kind of different, but I like to try to lower, that's part of the reason why my gym is free. I like to really lower that barrier of entry into fitness, because fitness is so hard, and we beat ourselves up all day anyway with these conversations that we have to try to deter ourselves from even getting started.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of why I asked the question in that sense, is we often think we all like our toys, but we also think that we need, the newest set of weightlifting shoes or the best wraps or weightlifting gloves or whatever. There's a million things out there that we could spend our money on, and we all know those people in the gym who are decked out head to toe in gear, but we don't have to compete with that. It's all about competing with what we did the day before, right? And being
somebody might think they need more information. I'm going to wait till I talk to so and so to see if I should go try that new program. It's no, just go do it. Just go start it. Go get moving.
So the last thing I want to touch on with you is, you're. One thing we talk on the show a lot about is the need for having a team around you. And you hit the nail on the head when you say that we need to treat ourselves like athletes. You may have heard the phrase tactical athlete, but that's how I try to espouse that idea that you are a tactical athlete, you are a professional athlete, and you need to train and work as such, right? And in doing that, we all require a team around us. For a cop with a lot of years on the road, it probably involves a physical therapist and maybe a chiropractor or some sort of coach or spiritual advisor. I'm curious, who is on your team?
I have an amazing network of people, and something I try to do with my children. My goal for my kids is very simple. I just don't want my kids to be assholes. I just want them to be good people.
Right.
I just want them to understand the true value in caring about other people. And I'm very blessed in the fact that I have parents that taught me that at a young age. And as I've kind of quote unquote, come through the ranks, I've seen how important that is. And I picked it up over the years, and it's something that has helped me so much. Like the people that I have in my corner, Andrew Zaragoza, who's set up, today's show. Mm-hmm. He runs our podcast. He's our podcast engineer. But he's also our photographer, and he also was doing other things with social media, and he was doing videos. And every guy and girl that works inside this building, they work their ass off. They work so hard. A lot of times I got to tell these people to go home. I'd be like, today's Friday, and I won't be surprised if I got to kick some of these guys and girls out of here today, mm-hmm. and say, hey, go the hell home, get some rest. So I have a great group of people here that work for me, and that help me. They help take responsibility off of me, and they allows me to think more, and allows me to pour more back into them and pour more back into the company. Additionally, I'm really fortunate in the network of people that I've met over the years. An example of this was recently I had a friend who was very, very sick. And I saw him at the Arnold Classic, which is this big fitness expo that goes on every year. And I haven't seen him in a while. And he was telling me that he was throwing up just incessantly every day, like 60 times a day, all the way to the point where he was having like seizures and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, dude. I'm like, I didn't know you were going through all that. And his wife was telling me, he's like, yeah, he's been going through it for the last 2 years, and we don't know what's wrong. And I said, I'm glad that we ran into each other, and I think we ran into each other for a reason. I said, I don't know every single expert there is when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to health, but I know a lot of them. And I said, I know some pretty sharp people. I said, let me poke around and let me see what I can find. Contacted a few friends. A couple of them didn't really know what it was. A couple of them like, that's kind of out of my wheelhouse, not really sure. And then a couple of them mentioned, that might be a parasite. And I had somebody recently on my podcast. Her name's Gabrielle Lyons. Mm-hmm. Had her on my podcast recently. She talked about parasites. Texted her. She's like, I'll help your friend. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine. She's like, send him to New York and we'll take care of him. So my friend went to New York, got tests done. Sure enough, he's got 2 parasites, and he's on his road to recovery. They're killing those parasites. This guy traveled the world. He was in the military, and I guess he picked that up. It's kind of a disgusting story, but it just kind of shows you like your network of people, how important it is. And my relationship to Gabrielle Lyon started with my relationship to Charles Pouliquin, who recently deceased about a couple months back. Mm-hmm. But all that started with just being just lifting weights, being good to people, being kind, and just being open-minded and open with people. And so it's like, man, it's like that incident right there might have saved somebody's life, for example,
Yeah. So when you're talking about the people that work for you and that, you're going to have to kick them out of there tonight to go home, what that tells me as someone who is a supervisor and leader of a squad, you're the supervisor and leader of a business. What is it about? What that tells me is that you are inspiring them to do good, great, big things, right? And to take ownership over what is ultimately your business, right? What is, how would you define your leadership style or your leadership technique? Have you ever, I imagine you've thought about it.
It's a constant work in progress.
Yeah,
I'm working on it all the time. I'm trying to get better at it all the time. And I'll actually just sit around and I will actually think about that a lot. I'll think about like, how do I make some of these things work a little bit better? One thing that I've been working on, and we're going to instill more things like this, but one is just to like let them be, let them do their own thing. Like you selected them. I gave them kind of like a job title, if you will, and I kind of selected them to kind of do some of these jobs. And now, how much sense does it make for me to really like hover over top of that job?
Right.
I might give them some criticism here and there, and I might say, hey, I think it could have been better this way. I feel that that's my obligation to make sure that they understand some ways to get better. Mm-hmm. But they also know, like I was in here today at 4:00 in the morning doing squats and stuff, and a lot of them came in fairly early as well. So they see me here early. They see me leaving late. There's no free rides. Like I'm not just sitting at home counting my money, while they're here working all day. Mm-hmm. They know that I'm willing to, break my neck, just as much as they are. They know I'm going to stick my neck out for them. And so therefore in return, they stick their neck out for me. I think, again, just going back to just being good to people, like there's a lot of different ways to lead people. I guess you could lead like kind of out of fear, but I certainly don't want this place really run that way. Right. I think the interesting part about that is, at least this is from my perspective, like they may have a totally different perspective of it, but by me and my wife being the way that we are, they're scared to mess up in a different way. They're not scared that we're going to like bring the hammer down on them. I think they're more scared of like, I want them to be proud of me. Like mm-hmm. I want to put in this effort, and I want to put together this project, and I want to give it my best shot, and I want to do the best job I can with it. And I'm more fearful that I'll disappoint them mm-hmm. rather than anything else, And so I think that's a good relationship for me to have with the employees, and I'd like for that to even change even more, and I'd like for that to be where I hope that they get to a level where they do that amongst themselves, and I'm not even part of that anymore. Like that's what I'm working towards.
That's a great vision for what to build out. Mark, you've been really gracious with your time. Tell everybody where to find more information about you and the Sling Shot, and about what you're doing out there.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been fantastic. I share a lot of information on nutrition and training. You can check all that out on my Instagram, which is @MarkSmellyBell. That's a nickname, Smelly, that I got from my two older brothers because I hated taking showers when I was a kid. And you can also check out markbellslingshot.com. We sell wrist wraps, knee sleeves, slingshots, all kinds of stuff over there that helps you with your training. Protect yourself before you wreck yourself is what I always say.
Right. We'll put links to all of your socials and your website in the show notes for this. Everyone can go to the squadroom.net and get those links. If you're out driving around pushing a black and white, it's night shift while you're listening to this, go to our website and you'll be able to find all of Mark's stuff out there. Mark, again, thanks for your time today, man. Great conversation. What's that?
I got a question for you before we drop off.
Yeah.
What are some things that you do? Because I'm just curious when you're, we got these night shifts and like, I'm sure like, maybe you're just out patrolling and you don't have a microwave or, it's like, I'm sure you could still have some food with you that's, not something that's going to go bad or whatever, mm-hmm. but it's got to be kind of inconvenient. So like, what are some things that you've been able to do?
Oh, that's a good question. I went from, a lot of guys. Yeah. I'm lucky that I work a station where I have access to like a substation and a microwave. And even I've worked, some of our stations have full kitchens. And I can kind of, plan ahead and I'll cook a whole meal at some of them, but that's very unusual. And I've also worked stations where I've got no access to those things. I work for a sheriff's office. So we have substations all over the county. Some are, like our headquarters, oddly enough, is one of the worst for this kind of stuff. Anyway, one of the things I found that works best is carrying like that 6-pack cooler lunchbox where you got like 6 slots and places for your protein shakes. And if I'm really disciplined and I'm really on top of it, that'll get me through a whole shift really well. But that requires, of course, meal prep, which is always one of my weaknesses. So I've done these, what I call nutrition go bags. We have a go bag on our cars, which is usually like extra ammo, extra AR mags. If there's like an active shooter, you grab that bag and go. And so I do nutrition go bags, which is just a Ziploc. I put these like 40 of these together at a time. It's a shelf stable protein shake, a packet of beef jerky, some almonds, And then on my shift, I'll throw in like an apple and a string cheese, and that'll usually get me through those dips where I'm ready to hit the McDonald's drive-through, or
Right.
I'm like, I didn't quite eat enough for dinner, and now I'm starting to get hungry. It'll get me through till breakfast, the next morning. Those have been huge. Those nutritional go bags like that. So a lot of guys, they go out. You have to stay in your beat the whole shift. They're eating off the hood of their car or in their driver's seat, or they're borrowing this microwave over at 7-Eleven. And so it really becomes about knowing, just like any good cop, you got to know your beat, but knowing where you can make some decent choices and then plan as best you can. And I joked about 7-Eleven earlier, but if you're hurting, 7-Eleven is a great spot to get some, like I said, almonds, maybe a string cheese, maybe a protein shake, an apple.
This is where I think low carbs actually isn't a bad option. When you if you were to roll through a McDonald's and get a quarter pounder without a quarter pounder with cheese without the bun, it's still going to taste good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of I'm not going to say that women don't feel the same way, but I think I've noticed this from men. Like a lot of guys, like they love that kind of food. They love, these kind of high fat meals. They're satiating to us. And I know for myself, like if I go to like In-N-Out and I get some burgers from there without the bun, it feels like I'm cheating on my diet. Like it tastes really good. It has a lot of salt, a lot of fat.
Yeah.
And so because of that might be something to try for a lot of the people that are listening to the show. In addition to that, I think you might want to try some fasting. You just have to be careful, especially as a police officer. We can't afford to have you guys and girls out there bonking and not having any energy. But it might be something to try. Like find what's your worst part of the day. What's that look like? And where are you finding yourself getting hungry and getting tripped up and then ending up in bad situations?
Yeah,
it might be a good opportunity to try some intermittent fasting, and it's not easy, but your body gets used to. You start to release less of the hunger hormone, and you get less hungry and you get less cravings. You'll still get them, but when they come, you'll realize they're false alarms. You're like, this isn't actually anything really serious. I'm not actually that hungry.
Yeah, I just went to a desk job. So I have, for the first time in 14 years, have a consistent schedule. I know where I'm going to be at 7 a.m. every day. I know where I'm going home at 5 p.m. It is such a game changer. And so much of my career and so many others' careers, it's like, like I said, I work 4 days on, 3 days off, and I have kids, young kids. So I can't, if I'm on night shift, I can't stay on my night shift for my days off. I have to turn back into dad/husband, normal person. And that inconsistency is such a thing we struggle with. I might be able to plan great on my days off, but then when I go to my night shifts, it's all thrown off, and then it's all thrown. It's this constant. It's like being in the dryer. It's like you're constantly tumbling around.
This is such a great thing that you're doing by sharing this information. And if there's any way I can help get the message out further, maybe we can do a seminar or something like that together. Maybe I can go to like your HQ and talk to some people. I mean, I think this is a fantastic idea. It's like something that's not really thought about that much, but people in your position, other police officers, other firefighters, people that they just obviously it gets to be tough. I know a lot of people in the medical profession where they literally care for other people, and then they miss out on caring for themselves, and they let their health slip up, and they literally don't seem like or don't feel like they have the time to prioritize their nutrition and prioritize their own health. They obviously do, but they kind of slipped into these bad habits. And as you mentioned, fatigue settles in and it messes everything else up. So I'd love to help you develop more strategies on how to help some of these men and women. I'm
excited. I will take you up on that, and we'll continue this conversation in the future, because I am going to ask for your help. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time, Mark. Thank you. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Squad Room. If you like what you heard today, you got something out of the show, please share it with someone you know, love, or care about. If you want to know how you can support the show, there are a few ways to do that. First of all, like I just said, share it with somebody else, subscribe to the show. Those are huge, huge things. You can leave a review on the player of your choice. That is also huge. It really helps us out. If you heard something a loved one needs to hear, you can email this episode directly from thesquadroom.net to them. If you're shopping at Ranger Up and rangerup.com, don't forget to use that coupon code The Squad Room to get 10% off your order. And if you're looking for a best-fitting ballistic helmet that exceeds NIJ standards and won't break the bank, check out hardheadveterans.com. They make excellent, super comfortable helmets. Many of my partners have bought one since I've been preaching about them. I've been wearing mine for quite some time. Well, I don't mean like wearing it 24/7, but I mean in the appropriate circumstances when I need a tack helmet, I put that thing on and I don't get headaches like I do with my old helmet. It goes on in a heartbeat. It's easy to adjust. And a lot of my partners are now very happy that they also have purchased Hardhead Veteran helmets. And you can use the coupon code SQUADROOM to get $20 off your helmet. Also, don't forget about onnit.com and onnit.com/the squad room. You can get 10% off your order by going through that website to select your Onnit products, whether it be kettlebells or Alpha Brain or Shroom Tech or protein powders or any of the other things that Onnit offers. Again, onnit.com/the squad room to get 10% off of that. Now, to keep up to date on our mailing list, you can go directly to thesquadroom.net and sign up for our mailing list. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at The Squad Room, or join our Facebook group. Just search The Squad Room Podcast Group. It'll come up. You have to apply. It's a super secret society. Not really, but we just try to keep out the riffraff. But we have some good discussions in there. And as the year progresses, we're going to have more and more and more. Lots of stuff coming this summer. Excited to share more of it with you as we develop. But until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.